friends. Brian Gossett here, GM Sports Media. It's another episode of Game Time with the Goss, powered by Grey Wolf Promotions. Want to see some of the best T-shirts, fan gear? Check them out, greywolfpromotions.com. An exciting episode, 100th episode of Game Time with the Goss, and no better way to have some of my good friends on and talk a little bit about the Texas High School playoff preview. So here we have Parker County's godfather and the GM Sports Media insider, Nolan Ruth. We got the legend himself, Coach Anthony Criss, the GOAT. And then we have Friday Night Glory reporter and recruiting contributor for Channel 5 Inside High School Sports, Kenny the Chocolate Bear Matthews. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to be here.
All right. I can't believe the playoffs are here. 11 weeks. Felt like we just started in August, but now the best time of the year as we got 6 weeks left for the UIL. See who can go to Arlington and win state. Well, let's dive into it. The playoff preview, we'll get through as much as possible. I kind of want to start with Mr. Nolan Ruth. We've talked about it all season. You know, we see it there in the background, the Aledo Bearcats jersey. You know, most state titles all time with 12. You know, you've seen them a couple times now this season. How do you like Aledo's chances to go back to Arlington and get number 13?
They're really good. The good news is that they don't have to play both Richland and Denton Ryan. Those two teams, one of them is going to kill off the other before they get a shot at Aledo. I think it's going to be Denton Ryan again. But you know, just the way Aledo played that game, you know, they handed Ryan a lot of first half points. Didn't really look that great, and then came out and dominated the second half. So as long as they get out of Region 1, I think that you're going to see Aledo hoisting another trophy. I think it's either going to be Highland Park or Lone Star in the semifinal, and then my pick is probably A&M Consolidated in the state championship game. But I think that the defensive front seven for Aledo is one of the best they've ever seen. Nobody can really move offensively against them, and I think that's their biggest strength. And that's going to be a key thing. When Aledo's got a defense this good, there's not a lot of people that can beat them.
Yeah, some big news this week. You know, their star running back, Racine Guillory, goes from 2026 to reclassifying to 2025. You know, one of the top running backs in the state and the country, 4-star kid. You know, I like to go with Kenny now. You know, he's done a lot of recruiting contributions with Channel 5. Just kind of talk about these last few years with Racine Guillory at Aledo.
Well, I mean, he's a thoroughbred. I mean, what else can he say? I mean, he brings everything to the table. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. You don't rely on having the block too much, but I mean, he's just a guy that always seems to be leaning forward, as I say. You know, if you need 3, he gets 4. You know, if you need 6, he gets 7. It's just one of those things that be able to take the pressure off the quarterback, bring in a new quarterback this year. You know, you can hand the ball off him to kind of let him get settled into the offense, get his groove. You're not asking the quarterback to do too much. You know, you got that beautiful weapon at wide receiver for him too, you know, which opens up lanes. I mean, it's just, to me, top to bottom, the only thing that will keep Aledo away from them not hoisting another trophy this year is if the ambulance truck is hanging out at their place for the next 5 weeks.
All right, Coach Criss, you know, you've seen a lot of football, but, you know, how do you feel about Aledo? Or is there another team that kind of, you know, Nolan's hit on it a little bit with Ryan, but is there another team that kind of can dethrone Aledo this season?
Well, you know, you're looking at the rematch of the game that either with Denton Ryan or Richland. And anytime it's hard to beat a team twice, especially of that high caliber, and especially the way those games turned out. They were close games. Ryan led by, I want to say, 13 points at one time in that football game. So you get a second shot at them. You know, you like to think, you know, that's going to be a formidable opponent. But there's Randy Allen in Highland Park. That's somebody who knows how to win championships. That's somebody that moment is not going to be too big. And so you got that kind of pedigree on the field together. Both of those guys, those programs are top-level programs. Can't discount when College Station comes out of the South, whether it's Fort Bend Marshall comes out of the Houston area, you just don't know what's going to happen there. That's what I love about the game of football. Aledo, they're the standard. They know how to win them. Matter of fact, they don't know anything but to win. I think they've only lost once when they've been in the state finals game. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to see how these kids are going to handle it. Because usually we look at Aledo as an offensive juggernaut all those years with the Bishops. So now with a good defense, and defense usually win championships. And it's just interesting to see what's going to happen because they've been a really good second half team. First half, you look at scores like what's going on in Aledo, then you look up 0 points, 3 points, 7 points, only given up after halftime. So that's going to be really interesting to take a whole look through this playoff run to see what happened from the round 3 and 4 on. I think rounds 1 and 2 are pretty simple and pretty easy. It's when they get to their third round and get to the regional finals, we'll get to see some really get Aledo, see them get pushed.
I kind of want to stick on the first rounders here, Aledo's district. The other side is Fort Worth ISD, Saginaw, Chisholm Trail. Got to give a shout out to Pasco making the playoffs for the first time since 1995. I think it's the first for Chisholm Trail all time, and then Saginaw 10-0 district champs for the first time. So shout out, congrats to those guys. If we want to stick on those by district games, I'll go back to you, Coach Criss. You've mentioned it. Seems like 3 of those games are going to be no doubters, but possibly, Saginaw and Azle might be a pretty good game. And we'll go to Nolan right after you, Coach Criss. But having seen Saginaw a lot this year, just what's your take on that matchup?
I think Saginaw is a surprise, 10-0. You go from 1-9 to 10-0, that's a great turnaround. Coach has to be a consideration for Coach of the Year. But Saginaw is a very solid football team. They're not overly impressive, but they win games. And I've been on the field with them, I've seen them, and I've looked at them, and they're very solid, very well coached defensively. They're going to be right there. I'm picking them to win that game. I think they can win it because every time I pick against them, they always win. So I'm going to pick with them this time. The interesting game is Arlington Heights. Arlington Heights and Richmond. Coach K, he's the Fort Worth ISD guy, came from Heights and been in Richmond. So I think Heights has the size to be able to match up with Richmond. I think it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a hard-fought game at Farrington Field. It's going to be I'm interested to see if Heights can slow Richland down. And Richland, can they slow Heights down with that large offensive line that Heights has? Coach James' boys are really good. The twins and his oldest son, they're very big and powerful and strong. Those are the 2 games I'm looking at out of those by district matchups.
Yeah, going back to Nolan with Azle, part of the Parker County coverage. You've seen them a couple of times. You know about them. Obviously, having played, Richland and Ryan and Aledo, those are always tough games. But what's your takeaway with their first rounder against Saginaw?
You just said it. They played Ryan, Aledo, and Richland, and they played them at the back part of their season. So these guys are battle tested, and they're battle tested recently. And they obviously got blown away and gave up a lot of points. I've said it all year that Azle doesn't have the best defense, really a good defense in my opinion, but they know how to score points. They scored against really good defenses of Richland and Aledo and Denton Ryan. So they have that good offense, and this is exactly the matchup that I think Azle wants. Azle wants the foot race. They want the high-scoring game because they know they can outscore you. All they need really is one stop, and they're capable of getting one stop. So I think Azle squeaks by because of that battle testedness. I think that these 2 teams are very, very even on paper, but I love that running game for the Hornets, and I think that that's going to be just that extra push to get them over the hump. And here's the other thing. In the second round, I'm not really sold on how good these teams out west really are this season. I think there's a very good possibility that if, in fact, Azle does beat Saginaw, then District 3 is going to be the only district left alive in this region come round 3. We're going to have a Richland-Ryan rematch and an Aledo-Azle rematch. Now, of course, Azle has to beat most likely Amarillo-Tascosa for that to happen, but despite Azle not having the best defense, Tascosa runs an offensive scheme that is exactly the one that Azle wants to see. They want to get it up front because Azle gets beat outside all the time. Aledo threw all over him. Richland threw all over him. Ryan threw all over him. But a running team like Tascosa, that gives Azle a bit of a shot trying to stuff it up the middle. So, again, I'm not picking it now, but it is a very real possibility that if Azle wins this game against Saginaw, that it's Richland and Ryan and Aledo versus Azle in round 3.
Awesome. Let's round out 5A with D2, and we'll go to Chocolate Bear Kenny Matthews. You got the Dallas South Oak Cliffs, PNGs. Just what's your feeling on 5A D2?
Can you believe that might be a second round matchup? It just seems so unfair to me, man. It's like we've had 2 really good state championship games with those 2 teams the last 2 years, and for one of them to be home before Thanksgiving just seems so unjust to me. But I mean, Suffolk Cliff, you're just going to base it on the pedigree. District didn't really didn't give them a whole lot of preps, and opportunities to shine going into the playoffs. But that's been the way the last couple of years, and they've just steamrolled through the championship game. Obviously won. That whole region to me is it's a little disconcerting to me a little bit. Is that I think that after you get past the second round, I think South Oak Cliff would be if they win, they would be the prohibited favorite to get to state then at that point. I don't see that any kind of a roadblock in their way at that point in time, which you kind of don't like to see that. You like to see some tests go. You like to see those 3rd and 4th round battles, but I just don't see it this time, Goss. I really don't. I just think South Oak Cliff, with their pedigree and their athleticism and their family starting to root. I know the district says otherwise, but it seems like offensively they're starting to find an identity again. They really missed the running back from last year at the beginning of the year. I think that really hurt them. But now that they're able to pass the ball and run the ball, and obviously that stacked defense, I just don't see how Suffolk Cliff does not make it back to Jury's World this year after they beat PNG.
I feel like you're sleeping on Texas High a little bit.
I could see that. Possibly I could see that. He's done a heck of a job up there. I think we kind of forget what happens in that area a lot. With the Pleasant Grove, we always seem to forget them, and then they're in 3rd and 4th rounds deep in the playoffs, and we're like, oh, that's right, they are a good football team. I can see Texas High. That's a very good point, Nolan. I'll definitely take you up on that one.
Moving over to Region 1, 5A D2. I've seen a lot where the favorite is Argyle to come out of that region. Some good matchups, definitely. Crossroad Walnut Grove having the year they had. Shout out to Arlington Seguin for making the playoffs in the final week against Summit. But Coach Criss, who do you have feeling coming out of Region 1 and 5A D2?
I like Argyle. I've seen Argyle, we was at ODY for the last 2 years, and I saw Coach Rogers out. He was building to come up to 5A for this moment. It was, the last 2 years they were going to learn how to play in the 5A. Now they're there. I think I really like them. I like, what's crazy is that I like Lone Star. This is going to be really good. You're looking at a team, Walnut Grove. I don't think anybody understands what that accomplishment is. New school, second year playing football, last year a Wildcat schedule, and you win the district with Melissa, Anna, Emerson, and Lovejoy. Melissa's not even in. So Walnut Grove has to be a really good team. That's my sneaky team. I was going to say, well, your first time in the playoffs might be a little dicey, but Richmond George Ranch, Mansfield Lake Ridge, their first time around, they get all the way to the state title game. And so when I'm thinking about that, it's like, okay, but Argyle is proven, Coach Rogers is proven, they got a really good offense. That defense has been outstanding this year. It's gonna be good. It's looking forward to it. And now, Lubbock Cooper is the team that you always got to be wary of, and the new schools out of Wichita Falls Memorial, which is, let's call it what it is. It's Ryder with different colors. So it's just going to be interesting. It's going to be really going to be fun.
Awesome. This is Game Time with the Goss, 100th episode. Got my buddies Nolan Ruth, Coach Anthony Criss, and Kenny Matthews. Moving up to 6A, the last couple of years, it's been the Duncanvilles, DeSotos. Obviously, in Region 1, in both divisions, it's a gauntlet, just brutal, great matchups. Let's start with Nolan. Just what you're feeling with 6A D1. You got the North Crowleys as well, South Lake Carrolls. I mean, there's going to be some great matchups down the road.
Oh, without a doubt. I think this is. I'm really excited about the 6A D1 bracket. Looking at round 3, we're probably going to see Euless, Trinity, and Allen. Then, of course, in the quarterfinal in Region 1, I have it as North Crowley and Allen. I think that's going to be a fantastic game. Duncanville, I've got Bridgeland as a sleeper down in the Houston area coming out of Region 2. That could be a regional final between Bridgeland and Duncanville. Got to give Duncanville the edge in that one. But I think Bridgeland is a good football program down there on the west side of Houston. I've got North Crowley and Duncanville in a semifinal. And yeah, dare I say it, I filled out my bracket yesterday. I've got the Panthers going to Arlington. The North Crowley Panthers, that'd be, not the Duncanville Panthers. Should have specified that. But no, I've got North Crowley going this year. They've had all year with this game circled. They made it to this point last year. They fell short. They had a statement win by beating DeSoto. I think that when the semifinal rolls around, North Crowley's going to be ready for that game. So yeah, I'm going out on a limb here, and I'm picking North Crowley to be in Arlington.
One thing about Bridgeland, you got to find out about Foge's injury or not. That's huge for them on the offensive line. On the commit, top 50 guy in the country. He got hurt last week. We're not sure if he's going to be playing or not in the playoffs. That'd be a huge hit if he can't come back. Been kind of tight. They haven't been getting any good information yet on it just yet, but that'll be big for them. I think Nolan makes a very good point there. I'm not so sure that North Crowley will play on. I think Allen's got a really good test here coming up this Friday night against Louisville. Louisville's kind of circled this game from last year when Louisville played Allen, and Allen beat them in the cold and the rain and cold on that Thursday night in the first round last year. I will say this about Allen: have one of those underrated defenses in the state, and they're not very big. They're not very. You're not going to go say, "Wow, that's a great looking defensive team." But every man knows their assignment, and they give maximum effort on every play. They shut down a really good Prosper team a couple of weeks ago that I watched that game down 2 weeks ago, and I mean they really played kind of the old school. They're not going to try to trick it up. They kind of play like Eunice Trinity. We're going to run the football. We're going to do short passing game, but we're going to play solid defense. So I do think Allen could take a stumble, but if they do play North Crowley, you're absolutely right. Nolan, you're right. That would be an excellent football game. But I'm always going to choose the guy until the champion gets knocked off. That's what I'm going to choose. I don't think Duncanville's been tested this year at all. I think they've just kind of sleptwalk a lot through this season. They only played 9 games because people don't want to play them. So I think it's a motivating factor. I think Keelan Russell is, for losing K. Durham last year, Keelan Russell has taken his game up a notch. That will help bridge that gap a little bit. But Caden Durham, I think they will miss that home run ability there. But they got Tristan Rogers. They got Ford. They've got Decoria Moore. Even if you stop their running game, they will still score points because of that. And we already know the defensive side of the football. We don't even have to talk about Pulley and the guys and all that in the back end because they're just absolutely loaded. I mean, they are. So until they play North Shore for the 6th time again, I'm not going to go against them. I think Duncanville Panthers are going to be the ones win.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to say that because you said North Shore. Don't sleep on Atascocita this being their year either.
Yes, I mean, and North Shore stole that game a couple weeks ago. They stole that game.
Yes, they did.
I mean, I think Atascocita actually gave that game away. But again, a 4-year starter in Caleb Bailey, a 3-year starter in Keelan Russell, both been in the championship games as much. A healthy Caleb Bailey. Until prove me wrong. This proved me wrong.
Yeah, there's going to be so much talent. Obviously, Russell, I mean, he's been great so far. I mean, adding one more title, what that would mean for his legacy, that's we'll wait and see. I wanted to touch base on North Crowley. A big shout out to Coach Ray Gates, a 3rd straight year North Crowley entering the playoffs 10-0. And then their wide receiver, talking about recruits, Quentin Gibson. I mean, he's quickly rising on the wide receiver list. He had an incredible catch last week against Crowley. It seems like he's, ever since that DeSoto win, he's picked up, 20 offers since then. Everyone wants this guy. So excited to see what he brings in the playoffs and what North Crowley does. Dropping down to D2, Coach Criss, I want to start with just because you're close to Arlington ISD, that district 86A. Shout out to Arlington Bowie, Coach Sam, first time district champs in 12 years. Just talk about Bowie. They get Dallas Jesuit here in the first round. Is this a team that we can see 2-3 rounds from now?
Yes, I think Bowie, you guys talking sometime on our little round table we'll be talking about. I think it's Bowie's turn again. Coach Sam did a good job of getting them back to prominence. That defense started off slow, but there was only 2 starters coming back off that defense. So I knew it was going to take time. Offensively, they've done a great job. They're averaging like 38, 40 points a game in district play. Offensively, they're very explosive with the wide receiver Tally. They've done an outstanding job. They're very fast. Now, they're small on defense, but they're lightning quick and they're fast. So I think I got Bowie going to the 3rd round. I think they'll get past Jesuit. I think they'll get Hebron in the next round. I think they'll get past Hebron, and then we'll see. But, once you get past, you can get to practice on Thanksgiving, you have a chance. They have a great quarterback, too, with Trey playing quarterback. And so I just think that they're going to have a really good shot at it. They've been kind of working up to this point over the years that Coach Sam has been there, and they finally have arrived, beating all the teams they needed to beat, winning the district championship 3 weeks ago. Had, beat by everybody by 2 games. So I think that's really going to be where they're going to hang their hat out. Now, DeSoto on that other side, I mean, it is what it is. So this is going to be something else with them coming through. But I just think that Bowie has a chance over there in D2, and it's really I'm interested to see what's going to happen in that division.
Yeah, another one out of District 7 versus District 8 that I like, it's actually on our picks, is Halton versus Richardson. Shout out to Coach Jason Tucker and the Buffs going back to the playoffs. They're run heavy with Drico Roberson and Keenan Jackson. And then Richardson, they're kind of an explosive offense. That might be a high-scoring game. But Coach Criss, how do you feel about Halton versus Richardson?
Well, Halton versus Richardson, Coach Holloway over at Richardson has done a great job. He came off the Berkner staff. Coach Tucker is back again. Halton runs the football. Richardson, their strength is their run defense. And so it's going to be strength against strength, or we like to say good on good. I like a tight game. I like a defensive game. And one thing that we haven't said, for the first time in probably 8 to 10 years, it's going to be great weather for round 1. It's always been cold, rainy, windy. And I was just talking about this to someone the other day. My brother's like, okay, we're not in this time at ODY, and it's going to be 70-something degrees on Thursday and Friday. And so that's why I think these teams are going to take advantage of that. Weather would not be an issue. And so I just think right now that Halton has been tested very well in this district, in 8-6A. So they're going to get some great defenses. So it's not like they backed in, so they got in, they played their way in, they did a good job. It's going to be interesting to see. Richardson have not been to the playoffs, I think 5 or maybe 7 years. And so you kind of have 2 teams that's getting into these playoffs that haven't been there before. And so it's interesting to see how kids react when they haven't been there. And so it's going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to that matchup.
Like I said, it's one of our pick-em games. So I'll put you guys, all of us, on the spot. I'm taking Halton slight edge. Coach Criss, who you got?
Richardson.
Kenny?
Coin flip, Halton.
All right, Nolan Ruth.
I took Halton.
Okay.
See, I had to do something to gain an advantage.
Let's go back to Nolan here for a little bit more about D2, but you still can't count out DeSoto. Seems like they've maybe taken a step back, but you can't count them out here in the playoffs. But since you filled out the bracket, what's your take on 6A D2?
Okay, look, I'm going to preface by saying that I have DeSoto winning the region, okay? But Coach kind of just skimmed over it a little bit. Here's what you got to remember for DeSoto. You've got to go through Willis in round 3. Willis, despite losing Lagway, looks just as good this year as they did last year. It's and even better defensively. And I don't think this is a DeSoto team that we've seen in the past few years. I think they're kind of down a little bit. Not to take anything away from Duncanville and North Crowley, who I think is going to be a great semifinal in D1, but this is not the same DeSoto team. So you've got Willis in round 3, and then probably Longview in the regional final. And Longview has really come on strong this year. They didn't start off great, but they've really worked their way. They win the district championship. They played in a semifinal 2 years ago before falling to Aledo in 5A. Now they're in a similar scenario. Look, I still have DeSoto winning, but this is not going to be the easy trip through this region that they're expecting it to be. They're going to have to win some really tough contests.
I think Nolan, Nolan makes an excellent point about that. Defensively, DeSoto, I don't think is where they've been, the last few years. And obviously, I think when you lose what I say is the most underrated legacy at quarterback in the state of Texas, those last 2 years in DJ Bailey, you had to have expect a drop off there. I mean, he was just almost almost flawless for the last 2 years for them. So I think that was one, but I do think that they have the one wild card DeSoto has that I don't think anybody else in that region has. That is Mr. Abrams. That guy can play some defense, and he is a wrecking crew. I mean, you talk about somebody getting game plan. He gets game plan months before he gets on that schedule. I mean, and he still is going out there and getting sacks and getting tackles for loss. But I think Nolan makes a great point. DeSoto's margin for error this year is very, very small. Last year, they can make mistakes. I mean, they made a bunch of mistakes against South Lake Carroll and still won the game last year with some great goal line stands. They can't do that this year. They have to almost play, turnover-free football for them to cruise in any game this year, I think.
All right. Final question here for all three of you. I'll throw out a different question for each of you, but we'll start with Nolan. Again, Parker County coverage, great coverage all season. But, after Aledo, it's kind of Brock's on the list of a deep playoff run. I know they're still a little steamed off, and you don't always want to play, angry team like that. But just kind of talk about Brock and maybe some other UIL schools in that coverage area that has a good chance of going on a deep playoff run.
Well, you didn't have to specify UIL because I have no private schools remaining either. They all got eliminated 2 weeks ago. Weatherford's done. Perrin's done. I've got Aledo, Azle, Springtown, Brock, Peaster, and Millsap. Unfortunately to say it, I think Millsap's one and done. They get a rematch with Toller. I think it's going to be closer than it was back in September when they played. That was only a 2-possession game. I think this is a 1-possession game, but Millsap is young and they don't have the best O-line, and Toller has a great D-line. So I think Millsap's one and done. Peaster's got a really good one with Comanche. I think it's going to come down to whoever has the ball last. I'll be there in Graham on Thursday night. If they win this one, it'll be a good win for Peaster, their first playoff win ever in school history. I picked them, but then they face Shallow Water, and I think Shallow Water is one of these West Texas teams in the smaller ranks that could go on a big run. I think I actually picked Shallow Water to win Region 1 in 3A Division 1, which is now wide open with Brock having moved up. Brock in 4A Division 2, yeah, they're mad. And this game against Godley is going to be interesting, but it's kind of like we just talked about with DeSoto. Their margin for error is really, really small this year. That has been every close game they've played in, and obviously the loss to Graham. Brock cannot make mistakes, and when they do, they get themselves into hot water. I think they beat Godley, but this is one of those games where they really cannot make mistakes because they are going to be in trouble when the fourth quarter rolls around. I've got them getting back to the regional final, and 2 weeks ago, going into that game against Graham, I would have said, this is, whoever wins the regular season is going to win is going to lose the playoff one, and vice versa. But 38-0 lost to Graham. Graham is good at football. Breaking news, right? And their defense is really good. They haven't given up a point in 5 weeks. I hate to say it because I picked them all throughout the season. I don't think Brock gets past Graham the second time around. So I got Graham coming out of Region 1 and 4A Division 2. And then we already talked about Aledo Azle. So the last one I have is Springtown. They get Castleberry and then probably Sulphur Springs in round 2. And then congratulations, you make it to the third round and you get the Alvarado Indians. So I think it's probably 3 rounds for Springtown. And if they somehow get past Alvarado, that'd be awesome. But then you get Salina in the regional final, and there's just no way that's going to happen. So I think I've got for everybody I think I've got at least 2 rounds out of everybody except Millsap. Yeah, I don't see, probably Aledo is the only one I can see actually making it out of their region.
Yeah, more shout outs. Springtown winning that first outright district title since I believe it was 1998.
In my life.
In your lifetime. After losing that week 1, 9 straight wins now. So good luck to Springtown. Then you mentioned Alvarado. Big shout out to them. 10-0 undefeated district champs for the first time since 2011. So shout out to Coach Walraven. Coach Criss.
Hey, by the way, they made it to state that year in 2011.
They did. They got unfinished business here almost over a decade later. See if they can get the job done. Coach Criss, any teams that we haven't hit on that you're looking forward to seeing, or any players or teams that you want to see make a deep playoff run?
I'm looking at 4A, Dallas Kimball. Dallas Kimball drops down. We haven't talked about that, but Kimball drops down, wins the district championship, takes that championship that beat Dallas Carter. And I'm interested to see, because Kimball dropping down. It's always interesting when a team drops down a classification. And they dropping down from that 5A gauntlet that they were in into a 4A, taking on Aubrey on Thursday night and playing at Clark Field. Keep my eye on Kimball in that situation. See how they come out, what they can do. Also looking at, surprisingly, quiet as it kept, no one mentioned Denton Geyer. You're trying to see what Geyer is able to do. That's quiet as it kept. That Geyer team, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember, beat Aledo early this year. So I'm interested to see what Coach Hyman has in store. Everybody, they're kind of under the radar. Everybody's talking about everybody else. Looking at Denton Geyer and see what they can come up. And quiet as it kept, they want it that way. They don't want to be mentioned. They want to feel like no one's giving us a chance. No one's even mentioning them. So that's my two teams I'm looking for. I'm looking at Dallas Kimball in 4A, and I'm also going to look for Denton Geyer, 6A.
And for Kenny, another team, I don't think we've touched base on it here, but Coppell is 10-0. But they do have maybe one of the toughest first round draws with Prosper on Friday night, hosting Prosper. Just talk about that matchup, Prosper versus Coppell.
I think you got one of the most underrated good quarterbacks in Edward Griffin. That guy, all he does is go out and make plays. Coach Wiley said that's the best football player he's ever coached. Good sized Baylor commit. Just a wonderful person too. I mean, the team just really gravitates around him. It is all about team. It's not been about him. The job that Coach Wiley has done in Coppell the last 2 years has been phenomenal. I mean, that team, that you could see that team had it was having some apathy set in over at Coppell for a while there. They were about 500 team, maybe 4-6, 3-7 a couple times. And it's just now that and they may have one of the best atmospheres for the student section at a football game too. I mean, it will be packed on Friday night. Prosper, to me, they're missing something. I'm not sure what it was. There was a lot of expectations, but the two physical teams they've gone up against this year, Westlake in the big game 1 and in game 9 against Allen, they got beat up on their offensive line, which should not happen. They've got 9 deep Power 5 conference offerable, to their offensive linemen, 9 of them. And they got taken to the shed both times by really physical football teams. I've been trying to figure out Prosper all year, and I just can't put my label on it. I think maybe one of the things is that they don't have a dynamic player on offense, and that hurts them a little bit, especially in the passing game. So I think people like to try to get 7-man fronts up against them to stop the running game. Coppell is the team that I saw them against Geyer this year. Geyer got the lead early against them. Coppell just really took it to them in the second half. And I know Coach Criss was talking about Geyer. I think Geyer's chances reign on one person and one person alone. Mr. Sperry has not need to be a turnover machine. If he can just not throw to the other team, Geyer can make a great run. He's been a little inconsistent this year about that, though, especially in the big games. He threw a big pick against Louisville a couple weeks back. That was a turning point in the game, in that game against them. If he can be turnover-free, Geyer can make a great run, because that defense, it's loaded, and they've got a lot of young players on that defense that are going to be prime prospects in 2026 and 2027. And that Zane Rowe, he can play. So, I mean, it's one of those things where I think Coppell, to me, is going to be the surprise game. I think they're going to be an extremely tough out, and Geyer can be a kind of a wild card, I think, if Mr. Sperry can play at a 4-star level.
All right, some more picks. Coppell and Prosper's on the pick'em as well. Nolan, who'd you got?
I took Coppell.
Kenny Matthews?
Coppell.
Coach Criss?
Coppell.
All right, got Coppell too. All right, I'll get you out on this. Final thing, just kind of red carpet for you guys. Where are you guys, what are you watching this week? Any other shout outs you want to give? Twitter, X, it's all yours. We'll start with Nolan.
Yeah, catch me Thursday night in Graham for Peaster versus Comanche. I think that one's going to be a really, really good one. And if Peaster wins, it's a big one. The first trophy they'll ever hoist in that program's history. Hopefully I don't go all the way to Graham for them to lose that one, but I think they can. Shout out Trevor Owens. Friday, I'll be at Azle against Saginaw. Again, another big one. Like I said, this one determines it. If Azle can get by Saginaw, I think they can go 3 rounds deep, so that one will be interesting to watch. You can follow me on X at Real Nolan Ruth for live tweets of both of those games. And catch me at killerfrogs.com, the TCU Horned Frogs Sports Illustrated page. I actually just recorded my podcast last night recapping the TCU win over Oklahoma State. That should be up by the end of day today, so give that a check.
All right, Coach Criss, who are you watching this week? You got any shout outs?
Yeah, I'm going to watch the teams I'm watching. Kimball. I'm going to watch Kimball on Thursday night out there in Plano. I got them going to the 3rd round. Then I'm going to watch the Crowley Eagles. I'm going to watch them on Friday night. I got them going to the 3rd round. So I'm going to watch my 3rd round picks. They better do good by me. What I want them to do. Keeping an eye out on my app on the Arlington Heights Richland score. I think that could be upset alert. I'll be texting you guys if it's an upset alert because I would have called it right here.
All right.
Peak at 100.
All right, Kenny. Any shout outs, and do you know where you'll be?
Thursday night, I'll be at Lone Star WT White. I don't expect that to be much of a game, but I always love covering the Rangers. The job that Jeff Rayburn does year after year out there is just phenomenal with the low enrollment, in the Frisco schools. I haven't decided yet on Friday. I mean, we're going to be at Coppell or I'll be at Allen on Friday. Allen and Louisville will be playing on Friday, and Prosper and Coppell will be playing on Friday. Just haven't decided which one I'm going to do yet. Depends on what intern of Friday Night Glory wants to go to. So I'll go to the other one on that side. You can always give me a shout at Kenny Matthews. At Kenny Matthews on Twitter. And I tell people, I'm old school. Just call me. 214-704-0524. Just give me a call, man. I don't mind picking it up. I don't need all that other technology stuff. Just give me the phone, man. I'm good with that. For any upsets, I was thinking, I wasn't really thinking of any really upsets, but there's a team you might want to watch. I think will get by in the first round. That's Frisco Wakeland. They didn't start the year off very well, but that Maples kid at quarterback, man, he's been on fire lately. So I mean, Frisco Wakeland's going to be an extremely tough out going forward after the 2nd round. Just watch from them. They got a dynamic wide receiver. I mean, what they did against Lone Star was really phenomenal a couple of weeks back, beating them that 65-59 game that Nolan and I were at. I mean, it was just unbelievable. Now they're a little leaky defensively. They're going to have to win some arena football scores. But I said if they can do that, I think that they got a shot at maybe getting to the 3rd round this year.
Awesome. And you can follow me at Gossip41. I haven't decided yet on Thursday, but Friday, Coach Criss, I'm leaning towards that Heights Richland game. So I'll be sure to give you updates. But going to be exciting, by district round, opening week of the playoffs. Looking forward to it. 6 weeks to Jerry's World, AT&T. Hopefully we don't have a sun issue at the state championship games, but that's another discussion later on. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys so much. This is the 100th episode of Game Time with the Goss. We appreciate all the support and the viewers. Thanks to my guys here, Nolan Ruth, Parker County Insider for GM Sports Media, Friday Night Glory's Kenny Matthews, and Coach Anthony, Criss. Appreciate you guys all season and looking forward to our next meeting.
Oh, it was great. We kept it 100 on the 100 episode.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's an honor.